Hi everyone, my name's Natalie. If you haven't done any Pilates with me before, today I'm going to be going through a hour class with you. Nothing too much, just to get your body moving. So the first thing you need to make sure is you have enough space around you so that you can move your arms and you can move your legs and you can safely bring yourself down to the floor. So if you want to use a mat, use a mat, or if you don't have one, you can always use a blanket or a towel. You may also need something just to lay your head on. So if you've got a small cushion from your sofa, or if your pillows are small enough from your bed, use one of those just to support your head to make sure it stays in line with your spine. Also, if anything doesn't feel okay during the class, please stop, specifically with your neck or with your back. Also, if you've got any underlying injuries, spinal or neck, it's probably best to sit this class out, but hopefully you would have read the instructions beforehand. So we will get started. We will start standing on our mat just to get that spine moving, especially if you've done a lot of driving or a lot of sitting. It's quite nice to start moving your spine again. I'll do it in different angles so you can always see where my body is moving. So we will start with our feet hip width apart, so make sure those feet are underneath your hips. Your back is nice and long, your shoulders are relaxed, and you want to think about your head going up towards the ceiling. You take a nice deep breath in here, and then as you breathe out, you nod your chin to your chest, and then you slowly wheel your spine down towards that floor. So you let your arms hang, you keep your legs as straight as possible, reaching all the way down. Breathing in at the bottom, and then as you breathe out, slowly bring yourself back up. Make sure shoulders come back up and the head's the last thing to restack. I'll show you from side on. So first move is nod the chin, then you roll those shoulders forward and slowly bringing those hands down. So again, try and keep your weight over your toes. Breathe in at the bottom, and then as you breathe out, squeeze into your tummy. Bit by bit, you bring that spine back up until those shoulders are up and that head's up. And we keep going with these. Couple more as you go down. If you can reach the floor, that's fantastic. If you can't, that's absolutely fine as well. Just make sure your arms are hanging and you turn them off as much as you can. If the stretch is getting a bit too much down the back of the legs, specifically at the back of the knees, as you go down, take a slight bend in the knees. So keep the knees soft as you go down. That should help with that. Just make sure when you slowly start to bring yourselves up, you straighten those legs as much as you can, and then wheel that spine back up. This will be our last one, nodding the chin and slowly bringing ourselves down towards that floor, holding at the bottom, and then bringing yourselves back up bit by bit, nice and tall, until that head's back up on that spine. From here, we're going to start to move those shoulders now. So again, if you have any issues with your shoulders, go with what you can do. If something doesn't feel right, make it a bit smaller. So the arms are going to start down by our sides. We're going to breathe in to float those arms up towards the ceiling. And then as you breathe out, slowly taking them back down. Ready to go again. Make sure those fingertips are nice and long as you reach all the way up and control them back down. Again, I'll show you on the side on. So the in-breath takes those arms up. As those arms go up, you keep that back nice and long. And then the out-breath brings you back down. So what you will find is as you reach those arms up, you'll want to arch the back backwards, but try not to. That's where that tummy needs to stay engaged to really keep you nice and long. Make sure the head stays in line with that spine and floating them back down, and make sure you're always in control of those arms, especially as they go down. You don't just want them to flop down by your sides. Last two like this, big in breaths, taking those arms up and slowly bring them back down. Last one, working all the way through those shoulders, nice and long, and then bring those arms down. If you need to, give those shoulders a roll. Might get a bit clicking and clonking going on through the shoulders, and just as long as there's no catching and it's not too much, that's fine to work through it. It's usually because you just don't use the movement enough in that part of the body. So going with the same movement for our shoulders, just adding a bit in now. So you're going to breathe in to float those arms up towards the ceiling. As you breathe out, slowly taking them down and out to the side until they're back to your side, that start position. Ready to go again. In breath up, out breath, circle them out. I'll show you again side on, like the other exercise, keeping the back nice and long, keeping that head in line with that spine. Last one like this, and then I'm changing it again. And out. On this next one, in breath to float those arms up. Out breath, taking them out to the side, but I want them to go behind you now. So those shoulder blades squeeze together and then they come back to that start position. So in breath up, keep the tummy engaged. Out breath, circle them behind you and back down. Couple more like this, really working into those shoulders all the way around. Last two. Up they go. Really try and open the chest up as much as you can. Last one. Reaching high, out to the side and behind, and then they come back down to your sides, ready to go into the next exercise. So next little one, still working the shoulders, but just get a bit more movement in the arms now. So again, keep yourself nice and tall, tummies engaged. In breath to float those arms up towards the ceiling. Out breath, bend at the elbows so those arms come down either side. We're then going to rotate in the shoulders so palms come facing the floor. We're then going to reverse it. Hands back up, push back up towards the ceiling and float those arms down. And again, in breath up, out breath bend, in to rotate, out bringing them back, and up, and all the way back down. Again, showing you from the side, keeping that spine nice and steady. Arms nice and wide either side. Rotate through those shoulders, nothing else is moving. Squeeze back up and float those arms down. Two more like this. Keeping that tummy engaged, keep that back nice and long. Rotate. Again, might get a bit of clicking and clunking in those arms, especially if you don't tend to use your shoulders that much. Last one, up we go. Dropping them out and down. Bringing them back up to that start position and floating them all the way back down. Again, give your shoulders a roll just to make sure they're feeling okay. And we're going to get those arms working a bit. So you might start to feel those arm muscles starting to work. So start position, arms are out to either side, nice and long. Back is nice and long. In breath, float those arms up towards the ceiling. And out breath, back down. Just a simple little move. In breath up and out breath down. Keeping the back nice and long. Keeping that head in line with that spine. Make sure the shoulder stays relaxed as possible. So as you draw those hands up above the head, the shoulders don't come up towards the ears. Keep the shoulder blades down and away, working all the way through those arms. Just slowly starting to warm them up. Might feel a bit of work in the shoulders. If you need a rest at all, please do so. You can come back to this whenever you want and squeeze up. Last two. All the way up and control them down. Last one, make sure the back's still nice and long, tummy's engaged, and those hands are going to drop either side. Still nice and long through the fingertips. I want you to start to circle those arms round. So keeping the arms as straight as possible, keeping the back as long as possible, just little circles all the way through, working those upper arms into those shoulders as well. Go, keep the elbows nice and long. Let's reverse, go the other way. This is where you'll start to feel those arms kicking in. Keep working through them. Keep the back nice and long and keep that tummy engaged. You've got three more of these. Last two. And last one, hold those arms steady, float them down and give those shoulders a roll. So hopefully you would have felt those upper arm muscles working. Still got a couple of more exercises to do in this standing position, but this time I want you to take your legs wider than hip width apart. So if you're on a mat, it's usually the width of the mat. But yeah, just make sure feet are out slightly and we're nice and comfortable, hips in line with those shoulders and that back still nice and straight. Going to go into an exercise called your side reach now. So we're hoping to get a nice stretch through the side, and tummy still needs to work to give you that balance. So we'll start with the right arm to begin with. You're going to breathe in to float that arm up towards the ceiling. And then as you breathe out, head goes over, spine goes over, and you reach the hand away from you. Left hand is just floating down by your side. You're going to breathe in. As you breathe out, connect with your tummy to bring yourself back to that center point, then float the arm down. Going with the left, in breath, reaching up, out breath, over you go. Try and keep your hips nice and level. You're growing out of the hip. You don't want the bottom half to be moving. Squeeze into the tummy to bring it back, and then float that arm down. And we keep going with this one. As you go over, try and reach your fingertips away from you as much as you can. Nice stretch through the side. Connect with the tummy again. Restack that spine. And then the arm floats down. Again, if this is too much shoulder-wise, you can take the arm out of it. You can just do the spine work and forget about sending the arm over as well. Squeeze to bring you back up and back down. One more to each side. In breath up and out breath, send it away. Stretch those fingertips away. In breath, bring it back up, restack, and then float the arm down. Last one, all the way up, nice and long, and then send yourself over. Keep yourself facing forward, squeeze into the tummy to bring yourself back up, and float that arm down. Again, if at all between any of these exercises you just want to give yourself a bit of a roll through the shoulders, please do. We're now going to bring our hands up towards our chest. So hands are now stuck here. Shoulders are relaxed, elbows are relaxed down. We're going to do a bit of spinal rotation. So I want you to think that your hips need to stay forward. So this is all concrete now from here all the way down. These do not move. It's just your upper body movement. So breathing in here. As you breathe out, turning the head to the right first. Keeping your hands stuck to the chest. I want your upper body to rotate round as well. Breathe in to hold it here. And then as you breathe out, everything comes back to that start position. Ready to go to the left. Turning the head first. Now rotate the spine round. Keeping those hips nice and level. Breathe in. And then out breath brings you back. So keep going with these ones. Make sure you turn the head first. As you rotate round to the right, keep your left hip pushed back. That will keep your hips forward. And slowly bring it back. I'll show you from the side view. So head turns first. Upper body goes with you whilst those hips stay forward. You might find that you don't have as much rotation as you thought you did. Head and neck will rotate more than that upper body. You breathe in to hold, and then breathe out, bring it all back. One more to each side, keeping your feet nice and heavy on that floor. Hold it, and then slowly bring it back. Last one, turn of the head first. Upper body follows. Make sure you breathe in to hold, and then breathe out. Bring yourself back. Relax those arms and give your shoulders a roll. Next, we're going to bring ourselves down onto the mat. So making sure you've got enough space, slowly bring yourselves down. Once you're down on the floor, you want to make sure your head is in line with your spine. So you may need to use a little pillow just to pop it behind your head, especially if you feel any tension in your neck once you lay down. You want to make sure your fingertips are nice and long down by your sides. Your knees are bent, so your feet are firmly on the floor and they're hip width apart. And just make sure your bottom is nice and heavy and your back of your shoulder blades are nice and heavy on the floor. So you will allow for your natural curves in the back. I don't want you to flatten your back firmly on the floor, and I don't want you to arch your back away from the floor. You want to make sure your spine is nice and long. So that's where you'll need to keep that tummy engaged to make sure everything stays nice and stable. So we're going to start with an exercise called your spine curls. So again, it's nice bit of mobility for your spine, making sure your feet are firm on the floor and your hands and your arms are nice and firm on the floor. You're going to breathe in here, and then as you breathe out, you're going to tuck your tailbone towards you and then slowly lift your bottom up and away from the floor. You're aiming for your spine to be nice and long at the top. You're going to breathe in here, and then as you breathe out, slowly bring yourselves back down to that floor, making sure you tilt your pelvis back to that start position. Ready to go again. Tuck the pelvis in towards you and wheel that spine up and away. So you really want to try and make sure you're getting enough length through your spine. So once you're up, really think about pushing your knees over your toes. And again, on the out breath, bring yourself back down. What a lot of people might find is as you go up and down, your shoulders get closer towards your ears. So really think about pushing your fingertips away from you every time you go down. Make sure your tummy is engaged as you start to place that spine back down on the floor, making sure your hip bones stay nice and stable. And also making sure your knees don't float out to either side. So make sure they stay in line with your hips. And bring yourself back down. We're going to do 2 more of these, then we're going to add a nice little bit in. Out breath brings you up. Spine stays nice and long. Use the back of the arms to keep you stable. And then bring yourself back down. Last one. Out breath to bring yourself up. In breath to hold at the top. And then the out breath slowly brings you back down. And then once your bottom's down, stay down. So hopefully you would start to feel the back of your legs starting to warm up, and your bottoms also need to help you, especially as you come back down, to keep you nice and stable. So from here, we're going to stick with those spine curls. However, we're going to add a bit of a heel lift at the top. So you can just practice whilst you're down on the floor, lifting the heel with one foot and placing it down, and then onto the other foot, lifting the heel, keeping the toes on the floor, and then bringing them back down. Couple more like this, just with your bottoms down on the floor. I want you to focus on your pelvis staying nice and stable. So you're just lifting the heel and that knee is moving, but nothing else is wobbling from side to side. Last one, heel comes off, and then slowly bring that heel back down. Again, if you're tight with those hamstrings, make sure your feet aren't too far away from your bottoms. Breathing in here. As you breathe out, pushing yourselves up into that spine curl. Breathing in at the top. As you breathe out, right heel floats off the floor. And in breath, slowly bring that foot back down. Over to the left, heel comes off. And we bring it down. Make sure your bottom stays lifted. One more to each side. Over to the right. And back down. Finishing off with one to the left. Keep your tummies engaged. Keep that back nice and long. Placing it down, and then you can bring that bottom all the way down to the floor. Hopefully legs are starting to warm up. We've got one more set of these to do. Pushing yourselves up and away, hold it here on an in-breath. Out breath, right heel off, and take it down. Use the arms, make sure you're pushing into the floor to keep you stable. Over to the left, and back down. Keep those bottoms up. One more each side, right heel off, and take it down. Last one, finishing off to the left, taking that heel down, and then bringing that bottom all the way back down to the floor. And then once you're down, you can stretch your legs away from you just to release those hamstrings. Or if you want to release that back, squeeze those knees in towards you just to release the lower back. And then place those feet back down on the floor. Make sure they're still hip width apart and those arms are nice and long. Next exercise we're going to go into is an exercise called your single knee folds. So you're basically mobilizing your hips in this one. Tummy still needs to stay engaged. because that back needs to stay nice and long. So breathing in here, as you breathe out, right foot first, hinging at the hip to draw that leg in towards you. And then in breath, takes it down. Ready to go on the left, out breath to hinge in. And in breath to take it down. So we stick with these ones now. Seem quite easy, just hinging one leg in at a time. However, I want you to make sure there's no transfer of weight from side to side in those hip bones. So if you want more feedback, place your hands on the front of those hips. As one leg hinges in and pops back down, you shouldn't feel the other hip start to lift up and away from the floor. That's where that tummy really needs to work to keep everything nice and stable. Hinging in and controlling it back down. Back stays nice and long. Out breath to hinge in and in breath back down. One more of these to each side. Making sure as you place that foot back down, it's nice and light. Don't thump it on the floor. Finishing off with one to the left and then placing it back down. Adding a bit into this exercise now. You can keep your hands on your hip bones if you want feedback, or have your hands down by your sides. Right leg into a single knee fold, and you're going to breathe in to hold it there. As you breathe out, we're going to drop that leg out to the side. Keep it at a right angle, and in breath, bring it back in and pop that foot down. So we're just getting another movement in that hip now. So over to the left to hinge in. And then we're going to slowly drop it out. Make sure the opposite side doesn't move. In breath to bring it back. And out breath, back down. Over to the right. Again, hands on those hips to make sure as that right leg drops out, the left side isn't going with it. Use that tummy to keep you nice and stable. And down. So hinge at the hip to draw that leg into that single knee fold. Keep that tummy engaged to drop it out to the side. In breath to bring it back in. And out breath back down. One more each side. Hinging in and taking it out. Keep the back nice and long. Make sure that back doesn't arch away from the floor. And down. Finishing off with one to the left. Bringing that leg up. Out it goes. Bringing it back. Back down to the start position, feet back to hip width apart. Still working our legs and our hips now, but the lower tummy muscles will start to work to keep everything nice and controlled. Just make sure if you feel your lower back starting to arch off the floor, that just is an indication the tummy isn't working hard enough. I'll try and give modifications, but if it's getting too much into your lower back, the best thing to do is just give these exercises a miss. So from here on the out breath, you're going to go into a single knee fold with that right leg. You're going to breathe in to hold it here. And then as you breathe out, send that right leg down and away from you so it's nice and long. Hovers just off the floor. Flex the toes in towards you so you stretch that leg. And then in breath, back into a single knee fold. Ready to go again. Out breath, push down and away. We're sticking with that right leg. And then draw it back in. So like before I said, if your back is starting to arch away from the floor as that leg drops down and away, modification for you now. Instead of taking the leg down and away, send it up and away. Push through the heel and then back to that single knee fold. That will just relieve the pressure on that lower back. If we're okay back-wise, leg down, long and away. Flex the toes in towards you so that leg is always active and draw it back in. 3 more, down and away. Really working all the way through that hip. Keep that tummy engaged. Last 2. And in breath brings it back. Last one, send it down and away from you. Keep it nice and long. Keep it hovered just off that floor. Those leg muscles are starting to work now as well. Keeping your bottom nice and heavy and that tummy engaged. You're going to breathe in here. As you breathe out, lift that leg up as high as you can without that bottom coming off the floor. And in breath, take it down. And again, up it goes. Might be nice and tight down the back of the leg so you get a bit of a stretch. In breath down. Last 2. Make sure the lower back doesn't start to sink into that mat. Keep it nice and neutral. And back down. Last 1, kick the leg up. And in breath. Take it back down, hovered off the floor again. We're not putting that leg down just yet. I want you to keep your toes up towards the ceiling. We're going to send that right leg straight out to the side. And in breath brings it back in. So tummy really needs to work to keep everything nice and stable. And bring it back in. Left leg doesn't wobble at all. Out breath to take it out. Make sure you don't rotate, so the toes should not be dropping out to the right hand side. They say straight up towards the ceiling. You've got 2 more. And back in. That hip's working. Last 1, send it out. In breath, bring that leg back in, bend it and give it a rest. So if you need to give that thigh a bit of a rub or that hip, do it now. It would have started to kick in just then. Right, doing exactly the same exercise, but this time on the left-hand side. So we're going to start with those single knee folds and then pushing the leg down and away from us. Again, keeping that bottom nice and heavy, breathing in as you breathe out. Starting position is that single knee fold. Breathe in to hold. As you breathe out, send that leg down and away from you, nice and long, hovered off the floor, flex the toes in towards you, and in breath, back into that single knee fold. Ready to go again. Push down and away. Keep that back nice and long and that tummy engaged. And then draw it back in. Keep going with these ones. Remember, the lower you go with that leg, the more those tummy muscles need to work. And that modification, if that back is starting to arch away and it's not feeling too good, from that single knee fold, you push the leg up and away rather than down. So bend it back. And then push up and away through the heel, and in breath brings it back. If we're all good back-wise, push it down as low as it will go to the floor and draw it back in. 2 more of these. Out breath to send it away, and in breath to draw it back in. This is your last one, sending the leg down and away. Keep it nice and long, hovered off the floor. Bottom stays down, breathe it in. Out breath, kicking the leg up as high as it will go without that bottom coming off. And in breath, back down. You got 3 more of these. The out breath takes you up. Keep the back nice and long. And take it back down. Remember, you might get a stretch through that leg. Last 2. Out breath up. And in breath, taking it back down. Last 1. Kicking it up. And then control the leg back down, keep it hovered off the floor. Toes stay up towards the ceiling, right leg stays stable. On the out breath, sending the leg out to the left-hand side. And in breath, slowly bring it back in. Again, the lower that leg is to the floor, the more the tummy muscles need to work. However, hip will kick in, leg muscles will kick in. If it gets too much on that hip, put the foot down, take a break, that's fine. Couple more on this side, keeping the right hand side nice and stable, tummy stays engaged. And drawing it back in. 2 more. Out breath, out it goes. And in breath, bringing it back. Last 1, legs should be nice and warm now, taking it out. And slowly bring it back in. And bend that knee, pop the foot back on the floor and give that leg a rub. You want to stretch the legs out just to release all those muscles that have been working. 1 more exercise before we get into our tummy work, hip rolls. I want you to draw your feet together and your legs together so they are stuck now. They're not going to come apart. Your arms are down in a low V, so you've given yourself a nice base. And I want you to imagine your shoulder blades now are stuck to the floor. They're not coming away from that floor. Back is still nice and long. I'm going to start to draw up the legs out from side to side, but I want them to be controlled. I don't want you just to let everything go. It needs to be controlled by your stomach. So breathing in here. As you breathe out, taking the knees over to the right-hand side, so your left foot will completely come off the floor to make sure those knees stay aligned. Hover those legs off the floor or make sure that left shoulder is stuck down on the floor, whichever you is closest. If you're close to the floor, that's great. Breathing in here. As you breathe out, squeeze those legs together to bring them back to that start position. Just make sure those shoulders stay down. Over to the left, over you go as far as you can whilst keeping opposite shoulder down. Push those knees away from you. Breathing in again. As you breathe out this time, I want you to think about dropping your ribs down to the floor, then your tummy comes down, then that hip, then the bottom, and then your knees are the last thing to come back over. So it's bit by bit, you're bringing yourself back to that start position, ready to go over to the right. As you go over, think about your knees pushing away from you so you get a nice length through the side. Breathe in to hold again, and then breathe out. Tummy squeezes to bring you back, and squeeze those legs together. Over to the left, remember shoulder blades stay down, back stays nice and long, sending those knees away from you. Breathe in to hold again, and then the out breath, squeeze into the tummy, slowly bringing everything back. And we'll finish off just one more, either side, taking them nice and slow so you can really control that movement. Breathe in to hold, and then out breath, squeezing back. Nice to get a bit of rotation in your spine as well. Like I said at the beginning of the class, if you've been driving or sitting for a while, it's quite a nice one to do. And then squeeze to bring everything back to that start position. And then once you're back here, bring those feet back to hip width apart and bring those hands down by your sides, and we'll get started on your tummy work. From here, I need you to take your hands and clasp them behind your heads. Feet will still be hip width apart, so feet in line with knees and knees in line with your hips. Your back's nice and long. And I just want you to drop your elbows out to either side. So really relax those elbows so you open that chest up. And then I want you to draw those elbows out to your side view and clasp them in towards each other. So trying to make those elbows meet. And then I want you to bring those elbows in between those two positions. So they're slightly out in your side view, and that is where they're going to stay. Make sure your head is nice and heavy in those hands, and we're going to go into an exercise called your curl-ups. So from here, you're going to breathe in. As you breathe out, you're going to nod your chin to your chest, squeeze into your tummies, and bring yourselves up and away from the floor. And then in-breath slowly brings you back down. So it's a slow movement, it's a small movement, but you need to make sure you're doing it correctly so that you feel everything going on, especially in those abdominals. So nod at the chin and then squeeze into the tummy to bring you up and away from the floor. Make sure you don't do any pulling on that neck. That head stays nice and heavy in those hands. As you come up and away from the floor, make sure your bottom stays nailed down to that mat. You want to make sure as you come up, you're not tucking your pelvis towards you, so lifting your bottom up off that floor. If you do that, tummy muscles are not working. You're just bending that spine to make it easier for you to come up and away from that floor. Doesn't matter how high you're going, just make sure it's this part of you that you can feel the work going on. Try and relax your shoulders as much as you can, especially as you're coming up. That will help you to really relax that head down. And make sure you're nodding the chin before you come up. Not coming up with a straight neck. Keep that head nice and heavy in those hands, elbows out to either side. Really drawing down into that tummy, getting those muscles working. We're just warming them up to begin with. We've got 3 more of these. Remember, in-breath to take you down, and then out-breath, straight up we go, trying to get those shoulder blades off. Last 2 now, then we'll start to add things onto this curl up to make it more challenging for you. Last 1, nod of the chin, draw down into that tummy, and then slowly bring yourself back down. On this next one, like the exercise we did earlier, your single knee fold, we're going to do that whilst we do a curl up. So you're going to breathe in. As you breathe out, nod the chin, curl yourselves up, single knee fold, right knee in towards you. And in-breath, foot down and your head down. Ready to go onto the other side. Left leg hinging it in and down. So just because that leg is coming up now doesn't mean you tilt the pelvis towards you. Keep that bottom stuck down to the floor. Keep nodding the chin to bring you up first, and then squeeze into the tummy to bring you up. Making sure it's nice and smooth, and as usual, there's no transfer of weight from side to side. Keep that head nice and heavy in those hands, making sure that neck is nice and released. And keeping that back nice and long. Lower back should not be pressed down to that mat. Just nice and natural. Out breath to come up. And in breath down. Finishing off with one to the left. And then we change it slightly. And in breath down. Keeping those elbows out to that side. Breathing in. As you breathe out, nod the chin, curl yourselves up, and we're going to single knee fold that right knee in towards us. We'll breathe in to hold it here, and then as you breathe out, push that leg down and away from you, hover it off the floor, flex those toes in, and in breath, draw it back to that single knee fold. Keep that head up though, and down and away, and bring it back in. If this gets too much on the neck, bring your head down, that's absolutely fine. And in, you've got 3 more, curl yourselves up a bit more. As that foot goes away, see if you can get up a bit higher without tilting through that pelvis. Last 2, out breath, send the foot away. And in breath to draw it back in. Last one, down and away. Bring it back to that single knee fold. Foot goes down, head goes down. Relax your elbows out to either side so you can just really open that chest up and relax that back and stretch those tummy muscles out, because we've got to do that on the other side. So making sure elbows are back up in that side view, bottom is nice and heavy, breathing in, out breath, up you come into that curl up first, get that good position, out breath into a single knee fold, breathing in, and then breathing out, left foot down and away, hover it off the floor. And in-breath draws it back in. Go ready to go again. As that leg goes down, can we curl up a bit higher, draw down into those tummy muscles. And on to number 3, send the foot away. And draw it back in. You've got 3 more of these. Keep that curl up high. And in-breath brings it back in. Last 2. And back in, curl up a bit higher. Last one, down and away. Bring it back, foot down, head down. Relax those elbows out to either side. Anytime you just want to give those arms a release, bring yourself down, that's absolutely fine. But your hands will be going back behind your head. We're not finished with those tummies. So if at all it gets too much on your back, please have a rest in between, that's fine. Elbows out to either side, breathing in here. And then as you breathe out, nod the chin, curl yourselves up, hold yourselves here again. Single knee fold that right knee in towards you. And then start position, we're going to send that leg down and away from us. So it's hovered off the floor, toes are flexed in towards us. Breathing in here. As you breathe out, leg lifts up. And in breath, take it down, curl up a bit higher. 3 more of these. Out breath to lift. Keep the bottom down. And control it back down. Last 2. Out breath up and in breath back down. Last little one, kick it up. Control it back down. Bend back into that single knee fold. Foot down, head down. Ready to go straight onto the other side, curling ourselves up. Left leg into a single knee fold. Press that foot down and away from us so that leg's nice and long. Breathing in. Out breath, kick it up, and in breath, control it down, up we come a bit higher. 3 more. As that foot goes down, see if you can curl up, follow the foot. Last 2, up, and back down. Last one, out breath, up it goes. In breath, take it down, back to that single knee fold, pop your foot down, pop your head down and give those tummies a break. So hopefully you're starting to feel those tummy muscles working. I know I am. And you also feel your arms working because of that position you're in. So shoulders, give them a roll as well. So next exercise we're going into, tummies still need to work, but we're trying to get our muscles on our sides to do a bit of work as well. So we will be rotating from side to side. Hands are going to go back behind those heads, elbows back in that side view so you can see them. Breathing in here. As you breathe out, nod the chin and curl yourselves up. Breathe in and hold yourself here. As you breathe out, release your right hand and reach it up and round to that left knee. Little finger of that right hand should reach the outside of the left knee, and I want you to keep your shoulder blades up and away from the floor. In breath, bring the hand back round. Do not take your head back down. Out breath, left hand up and round to that right knee. Keeping your bottoms down, and in breath, slowly bring it back. One more to each side. Round you go. As you bring the hand back, you'll feel like you want to fall back, but keep that tummy drawn down so the head stays lifted. Finishing off with one round to the right. In breath, bring that hand back and then bring that head back down. So hopefully we're feeling more of those side muscles working now. Adding another bit into these obliques. So on the out breath, nod the chin and curl yourselves up. Breathing in to hold. As you breathe out, right knee, hinge it in towards you. Breathing in. As you breathe out, right hand up and round to that left knee. As you breathe in, hand comes back and that foot goes down. We're going to the other side. Single knee fold, left knee, left hand up and round to that right knee you go. Shoulder blades off. And bring it back. You've got one more each side, guys. Right knee and round we go. And in breath, bring it back. Tummies need to be working. Last one, up and round. In breath, bring the hand back, foot down, head down. Rest those tummy muscles. Right, guys, so we've got our stomachs working now. They've warmed up. We're now going to roll ourselves onto our sides to get our legs and our bottoms working. Well done. So from this position, roll yourselves onto your sides. Doesn't matter what side you begin with. Make sure you have a pillow that is big enough so when you lie down, your head will stay in line with your spine. From here, I want your arms to be out in front of you. So you will be on that underneath shoulder. Your arms will be nice and long out in front, and your legs will be slightly bent, making sure the base of your feet are lined up with your bottoms, and your tummies are nice and engaged, and you're lifted away from the floor. So really making sure you keep the underneath waist lifted all the time. Before we get into our leg work, we're just going to do some work on the shoulder and the spine. Again, if it's too much on your shoulder, miss this exercise out, that's absolutely fine, but I will give you a modification for it as well to see if it feels better. So this exercise is called your arm openings. So from here, top arm, you're going to breathe in to float that arm up towards the ceiling and turn the head so your eyes follow the fingers. On the out breath, your arm starts to drop behind you, but I really want you to think about your waist and your upper body starting to move. You're going to breathe in to hold. As you breathe out, bring the arm back up towards the ceiling, and then breathe out to close that hand back down. So keeping your hips stacked one on top of the other, make sure this top hip doesn't roll back with you. In breath to open the arm. Out breath, rotating that spine, so that's what makes the arm drop behind you. Turn the head to look at the hand. In breath, bring it back up. And out breath, closing it back down. We've got two more of these. Just wanting you to get some movement in that spine and that shoulder. Make sure that hip doesn't drop behind you. Keep your knees stuck down to the floor and keep them stuck together as well. Last little one. In breath, up. Out breath, rotate that spine so the arm drops behind you. In breath to bring it up, and then out breath back down in front. So now arms are not doing anything, they can just relax in front of you or wherever is easiest. If you want to bend the arm up here, that's absolutely fine. So keeping your heels together, you're going to start to open that top knee up towards the ceiling. And in breath, slowly close it back down. Ready to go again. Opening, keep the heels together and close it back down. So this exercise is called your oyster. So out breath to open and in breath to close back down. Keep your hips one on top of the other. If you want to keep your hand on that top hip to make sure you're not rolling back, and also make sure you keep the top hip pushed down and away from you. As you open and close this top leg, you'll start to feel hamstrings working and those glutes in the bottom working. You really want to think about squeezing your glutes together as you open that top knee towards the ceiling. And think about pushing that knee away from you as well. That will help you really kick those muscles in. If you want to make this a bit harder now, you can float both feet off the floor. So both feet come off the floor and you keep going with that same movement, opening and closing that top leg. Just make sure if you have lifted the feet off the floor, you haven't sunk into that mat. You keep your underneath waist nice and lifted. Keep your tummy engaged. If it gets too much on your hip, it's getting a bit grippy in there, leave this exercise out. That's absolutely fine. You really want to feel those hamstrings and those bottoms doing this work and controlling everything. Last 3 like this here, and then close it back down. Last 2, if you can, keep those feet lifted. If you need a break and need to put those feet down, that's absolutely fine. On this last one, we're going to open that top leg into that oyster position. So knees are wide apart. You're going to hold it here. So toes and heels are together at the moment. You're going to breathe in. As you breathe out, hinging at that hip to bring that knee up and in towards you. And then out breath. Toes and heel connect back together. Ready to go again. Hinging it up and in and back down. So again, trying to keep yourself lifted away from that floor. As that leg hinges in, you don't want to sink into that mat. Keep that top hip down and away so you keep that top waist nice and long. And that tummy still needs to work to keep you nice and stable. Make sure as you do these, those knees don't come closer and closer together. They will want to as that work starts to kick in and those leg muscles start to work. Because that foot, if it is still lifted, is lifted, this bottom leg will work as well. So double the work for you guys. Hinging in and back down. Couple more like this. Better that oyster. Open that knee up towards the ceiling a bit more. And down. You've got 2 more. Hinging up and taking it back down. This is your last one, but we're not finishing yet. So the leg hinges in. We bring the toes and the heels back together. We keep that oyster wide and we hold it here. Breathing in again. As you breathe out, keeping the top part of the leg nice and steady, unfold at the knee and point the toe away. In breath, toe back to toe. Ready to go again. Out it goes. And bring it back. So you want to try and keep that leg turned out all the time. You're just moving that knee, unfolding the bottom part of the leg. Bottom needs to work and those hamstrings need to work. Better the oyster, turn that leg out a bit more if you can. Keep the bottom leg lifted, tummy engaged and you're lifted. We've got 3 more. Away. And bend it, bring it back in. Last 2. Last little one, then you can have a break. Send that leg away. Bend, toes back to toes, close, and then bring those feet down. And then give that leg a rest. You may need to give your leg and your bottom a rub just to release those muscles. And then you're ready to roll yourselves onto the other side. So get yourself set up. Bring your pillow with you. Make sure pillows are underneath that head. And that start position, arms are nice and long in front of you. One hand on top of the other. Make sure you're on that underneath waist. Legs are slightly bent so your feet are lined up with your bottoms. We're going to start with those arm openings again. So breathing in, float that arm up towards the ceiling, turn the head. As you breathe out, that arm's going to drop behind you because that waist and that upper spine is moving. In breath to bring it back up, and out breath, closing it back down. So I forgot to show you on the other side the modification if this one isn't okay for your shoulder. If shoulders are not good, I want you to draw your hand to your chest and send your elbow behind you. Turn the head as much as you can, and then slowly bring that hand back on top of the bottom hand. So hand comes to chest and the elbow comes behind you. Hips stay stacked, don't roll back. And then bring it back to that start position. So if shoulders aren't feeling good, that's a good one for you to do. Otherwise, stick with your arm nice and long. It falls behind you, making sure it's only moving because that spine is moving. Bring it back up and close it back down. Last little one of these. Remember, as that arm goes behind you, keep your top hip forward. Keep those hips on top of one another. In breath, back up. And then out breath, back down. And that's it for your upper body in this position. Focusing on that lower body now, legs and the bottom, keeping your heels squished together into your oyster. So out breath, opening that top knee towards the ceiling, and in breath, closing it back down. Again, keeping yourself lifted away from the floor. Tummy is engaged, that waist is nice and long. If you want to have a hand on that top hip, just so you can get a bit of feedback to see if you're rolling back, making sure the top hip is pushed down and away from you all the time. Really trying to get as much rotation in the hip. And you might feel a bit of a difference. It might be easier on this side. You might be able to get a better range of movement in that hip. It might be tighter, depending on how you use your body. Just make sure you're going to what you feel like. Don't push yourself too much. Again, if it gets too much on your hip, take a break. That's absolutely fine. Last one like this, and then we're going to lift those feet off the floor. So keeping the knees down, just hovering those feet off. And we're going to continue with that oyster, keeping those heels squished together, controlling it as much as you can. Because those feet have lifted, make sure you haven't dropped down into the mat. You're still keeping yourself nice and away. Spine is nice and long and the tummy is engaged. And what we tend to do as those legs start to work, upper body gets tense. So constantly remember, keep your shoulders nice and relaxed, keeping the upper body nice and relaxed, but keeping the tummy engaged. So making sure you're getting as much rotation in the hip. As you open, think about pushing your knee away from you and squeezing those bottoms together. Glutes are squished together as they open. Really get those working, and those hamstrings need to kick in as well. Last three like this. Open, send the knee away from you and back down. Last little one. Open into that oyster and keep open here. So knees do not come closer together. Waist is long. Breathing in. As you breathe out, hinging that leg up and in towards you, and in breath, back down. And again, hinge in. Hardest bit is trying to find heel to heel or toes to toes. Hopefully it'll be easy enough that you can find your underneath foot to bring them back together, but keep those knees wide. If you want to, hand on that top hip to keep your hip pushed down and away. Keep yourself lifted. So hamstrings and those glutes start to kick in, hinging in and controlling it back down. Turn that leg out a bit more. Keep going. So my leg's starting to shake now, definitely feeling work on this side. Hinging in and taking it back down. Let's do 3 more. Keep it turned out. Don't give in just yet. You've got 1 more bit. 2 of these. And find that underneath foot. Keep the underneath foot lifted as well. Last one. And back down. Right. Keeping the oyster position wide. We're unfolding at the knee. Pointing the foot away. And in breath. Bend it. Find the toes back to the toes. Ready to go again. Out breath. Away. And in breath. Back in. Turn it out a bit more. Don't lose it just yet. Point it away. Keep the tummy engaged. Keep yourself lifted. And back in. Let's do 3 more before your leg falls off. Send the foot away and bend it back in. Last little 2, leg might be shaking at this point. Carry on and back in. Last one, pointing away. Bend it, toes back to toes. Close, feet down, and give that leg and those glutes a rub. They worked hard with that little exercise. When you can get those legs working again, bring yourselves onto your backs. Bend your knees so your feet are firmly on the floor, and just to stretch those glutes out, crossing one leg over the other. So you're aiming for the ankle to just rest on the top part of the knee of the opposite leg. And up to you, you can use your hand to push that knee away. Just want you to open up that hip as much as you can. Get a stretch maybe in those glutes just to release those legs before we stand up. And then bring that foot back down, and we'll cross over to the other leg, crossing over, pushing that knee away as much as you can, stretching the legs here, and then release, bringing the foot back down, bringing yourselves slowly up to your sitting position and then up to standing. Make sure you support yourselves. So, up, standing nice and tall on your mat again. We've worked your tummies, we've worked your arms, we've worked your legs. Now you can go and rest. We're just going to finish off with your roll down, how we started the class. Hopefully it should feel a bit easier, you're nice and warmed up, but should probably get still a stretch down the back of the legs. So feet underneath those hips, arms are nice and long. Breathing in here. As you breathe out, nod the chin and slowly roll yourself down towards that floor. Letting those arms hang. Again, keep the legs as straight as possible. Breathing in, and then as you breathe out, slowly restacking yourself bit by bit. Nice and tall. One more, down you go. Nod of the chin, roll those shoulders forward. Holding out at the bottom, arms are nice and heavy. Breathing in, and then the out breath slowly brings you back up. Standing nice and tall. And you've completed an hour's Pilates class with me. So well done, guys. I hope you're feeling good. Hopefully you're still moving. So yeah, I hope to see you again soon. Take care. Bye.